I delight in your commands, because I love them. I reach out for your commands, which I love, that I may meditate on your decrees.
Hello and welcome back to the Stone Pillar Podcast, a podcast where we explore the teaching, the ministry, and the people here at South Paris Baptist Church. I am one of your hosts, Dane Sampson, and I am a husband, a father, and a student of God's Word.
And I'm the other co-host, Brian Wilbur, serve as pastor here at South Paris Baptist Church. And I'm also a husband and a father and a student of God's Word. And God has given all of us who belong to Him the opportunity and the imperative to grow in wisdom, to grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ, to press on, to know the Lord and to live fruitful lives. And in this particular episode, we're going to be doing some reflection in light of the sermon that I preached on September 14th. September 14th, looked at some verses at the end of the letter of 1 John, which concludes by telling us to keep ourselves from idols. And so I talked about that a little bit, and then I talked about one particular idol that had gotten a foothold in my life, and so we're gonna talk about that today. So I'm gonna pass the baton over to you and see how you wanna.
Oh, okay.
How you want to steer the conversation.
Yeah, all right. So your sermon, you spoke a sermon, and what was the title of your sermon? To protect your greatest treasure from insidious imposters.
Yes.
Was that the title?
Yes.
Okay. That was awesome. Yeah, you had talked about idolatry. You defined idolatry as spiritual adultery, having something that is not God in God's place.
Right.
Confidence, attention, devotion. You said anything can be an idol, having good things in place of where you should have God's things. And this was dangerous.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to, for our review, and so that we're all on the same page. You had talked about the iPhone being a particular area where you define that as being an area of idolatry.
Right. For me, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
you use as an example that we could extrapolate from it as an example other areas
Yes.
of idolatry,
Yes.
but for the sake of discussion, we'll limit it to the example of the iPhone.
Sure.
So you asked me to prepare some probing questions.
Yes.
So I'm going to play the part of probing interlocutor.
Excellent. Excellent.
So let's see. What questions. I haven't really necessarily organized these questions in any particular order. So you were talking about confidence as being a tie-in or a clue that something is a source of idolatry. Can I be confident in something other than God?
Yes. Yes. In a relative sense, I think that when it comes to the absolute confidence and wholehearted love that we have for the Lord, we will have similar dispositions toward other, in many cases, worthy creatures or even things. But the important thing to be said is that those other confidences, those other commitments, those other loyalties are always secondary. So, just to give one example, those who are supposed to be leaders, whether you're thinking of the book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, and the kinds of leaders that Moses was supposed to find to serve under him, or whether you think of the qualifications for elders and deacons in the New Testament. These are supposed to be trustworthy men. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't always work out that trustworthy men fill those positions, but sometimes it does. And so there are trustworthy men and there are trustworthy women in the world, and in a limited sort of way, we place genuine confidence in them, but we don't place total confidence.
Right.
We don't place absolute confidence. People will let me down sooner or later. Mm-hmm. Things. I mean, let's talk about things. Okay. This is often used as a classic illustration of faith. Okay. I do in fact have confidence that this chair will continue to hold me up. Mm-hmm. Okay, if I didn't, number one, I probably wouldn't be sitting in it. Number two, if I was sitting in it, even though I wasn't confident it would hold me up, I'd probably be very distracted or anxious. Okay, so yeah, it's totally appropriate to place confidence, limited confidence, secondary confidence in people and things. But we have to make sure that our overarching and absolute confidence is in God alone.
Sure. Yeah. Great. I would imagine that same logic would apply to the other two, paying attention to something.
Yes.
Not absolute attention.
Right.
But yes, there is a context for where you might pay attention, like when driving down the road.
Right. Please, drivers, please pay attention to the road.
How about good things versus God things? Would you be able to give an example, or would you be able to give an example of good things that would be, like, I don't know, maybe displacing God things, or, can you play with the good things versus God things?
Sure, and I think it's actually good to add the other category of inherently bad things, just to keep the conversation kind of comprehensive here, because oftentimes when we think about idols, let's say in the Old Testament context, you're dealing with things that are inherently bad, in the sense that here is either an attempt to represent the true God, which God forbade the attempt to represent him, or it's a representation of some other imagined deity or actual angelic or demonic figure. And so those idols should be torn down, smashed, discarded, gotten rid of. Okay. But the fact is that in the final analysis, we can end up turning anything into an idol. And we often turn good things into idols. Mm-hmm. So if a man has, let's say a man is seeking a wife, mm-hmm. and he's found a woman, and she's become his girlfriend, and she could become an idol to him. She could become like the complete focus of his attention and his affection, and he's just madly in love, and his entire center of gravity is drawn to her. Okay. Now, if he wakes up one day and is convicted by the Lord that his girlfriend has become an idol, okay, his girlfriend is a good. It's a good thing. It's a good person, worthy of value and respect. She's not an idol to be destroyed, as it were, or gotten rid of. So what has to happen is he has to de-idol her. She's going to continue to exist and live. She may or may not continue to be his girlfriend. She may or may not become his wife.
Sure.
That may happen, that may not happen. But he needs to shift his affections in such a way that she's not number one. Okay, and this, we deal with this all the time. When I was in Louisville, Kentucky, back in the early 2000s, my coworker gave me a handheld Yahtzee game. Now, I had a lot of fun with that for a number of weeks. My addictive personality was on display there because I became very consumed with this handheld Yahtzee game. And after some weeks, I realized, you know what, this is not good. And I just realized that I was giving way too much time and energy to this handheld Yahtzee game. And so I put black electrical tape around it, and I put it away. And I still have it. I'm pretty sure it's in my quote unquote testimony box, which I could, take out and tell the story. And I've never used it since. I don't believe that the handheld Yahtzee game is inherently evil. I don't think I have to smash it to pieces.
We don't have to make a new commandment. Thou shalt not play Yahtzee.
but see, here's what happened. I was convicted that I was giving undue attention to this handheld Yahtzee game. Now, the biblical pattern is, in terms of repentance, if you're going to turn away from a sinful course of action, you have to turn to a righteous course of action. You can't just say, I'm not going to play the handheld Yahtzee game anymore because I still have available time and available energy. What am I going to do with it? I could just go from a handheld Yahtzee game to a computer Pac-Man game, and that's not necessarily much of an improvement. Okay, in that case though, a very particular thing happened. For a series of days, instead of coming home and playing the handheld Yahtzee game, I came home and listened to a series of 5 sermons from John Piper on Isaiah chapter 55, which, by the way, I recommend to all of you. Go find those 5 sermons from Isaiah 55 by John Piper, available at desiringgod.org, and be edified by the word of God. But so that's what happened. I had allowed myself to be drawn into the trivial, and eventually I felt the emptiness of it, which idols always ultimately leave you empty, and I replaced it with the soul-nourishing words of God, and it was wonderful. So that's just a practical example, but. So the problem is we have to be attentive. The Bible tells us to pay attention, to exercise watchfulness over our own hearts. And hopefully we get to a certain point in the Christian life where inherently evil things don't hold much appeal to us. I hope that inherently evil things don't hold much appeal to us, but but how easy it is for good things, or you could say neutral things, how easy it is for them to become God things, in the sense of not that we look at them as God, but we have effectively put them in God's place. They have our attention, they have our affection, they have our preoccupation, they have our loyalty. It's what we think about when we have downtime. That's where we go. And I think if we're honest, all of us are dealing with that sort of thing all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we shouldn't despair, but standing firm in God's grace, we should try to draw closer to the Lord and to let those other things fall into their proper place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. Yeah. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength. And if you put that in its proper place, and things kind of naturally fall into their proper place.
Yes.
That's good. Idols are hollow. I like that.
They are.
They
are.
I remember when I was traveling overseas, there was this. I was in Thailand, in Bangkok. Then there's this ginormous Buddhist statue of Buddha and a temple there, and it's a very famous temple, humongous golden Buddha. It's hollow.
Yeah.
It's not even a joke. It's just factually true. It's hollow. And it is spiritually hollow. But okay, let's see. So this is a dicey issue. This is a hard issue, a relevant issue. I think we all struggle with this. Like the usage of our iPhone, continuing to use not the iPhone, the brand, but the smartphone.
The smartphone, yeah.
Using that as an example of idolatry is difficult, because you can use a smartphone for many enriching and edifying things.
Yes.
Where do you see, I mean, maybe you've already kind of started answering this question, but where do you see the line? So like using the smartphone for like consuming Christian content, or like sermons or Christian podcasts or Christian music, like how do you practically draw a line? And maybe you can only answer personally, but like, how do you answer that?
Well, obviously it's okay to use your smartphone to listen to the Stone Pillar podcast.
That's acceptable.
But beyond that,
no, we got some questions.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. I actually, though, I do, because we're gonna talk about a number of things here related to smartphone usage and reflecting on that. And I wanna help people listen to me and not tune me out. And so I wanna state very clearly up front that I am not claiming that the smartphone is inherently evil. I'm not claiming that. I'm not claiming that that we should all throw our smartphones away and never use them again. I'm not claiming that. What I am saying, first of all, is that I'm dealing with my own struggles with coming to terms with how much I was relying upon and how much of my life was being lived in reference to my smartphone, which is why I in that sermon, why I essentially called my smartphone usage an idolatrous partnership. Okay. So I'm talking about my own struggles and reflecting on that. Secondly, though, I do absolutely believe that many, many people in our society have, in varying degrees, been diminished in their experience of life and been diminished in their engagement with God and with people and with God's world. They've been diminished in those things by the way that they have uncritically accepted the use of their smartphone. I want to help all of us think critically and carefully and intentionally about what we're doing with smartphones, and of course, by extension, with anything else for that matter. But so let me start to answer your question, and then maybe we can have some back and forth about it. You're asking a really good question. Kind of how do you think in terms of like that drawing the line? I'm just going to start off by saying that obviously, if someone is using the smartphone for, let's just say, trashy content, well, obviously, that trashy content's got to go. Like you got to figure out how to, I mean, in the movie Fireproof, wonderful movie, one of the Kendrick brothers movies. Caleb, the character in the movie whose marriage was falling apart, but then he became a Christian, and then he wanted to save his marriage, and he was dealing with pornography and the temptation of pornography. And at one point in the movie, he in a decisive moment, he took his computer and he took it out to the yard and he smashed it. And there's a time and a place for that. There's a time and a place for that. If your smartphone usage is so woven together with trashy content, you may need to get rid of it for a time. You might have to do that. But then if the trashy content is not what you're dealing with, then you have varying degrees of good content or trivial content. And this is where I think that things get really, in a sense, they get complicated in terms of thinking through it. So I'm just going to come out and say that I think one of the big problems with the smartphone is the fact that it can do so many things. And I think that that's really dangerous spiritually. And so one thing I want to say to myself and to all of us is to embrace your finitude. Embrace your finiteness. Okay? We are finite people. We have great limitations in our own embodiedness, living in a particular place, in a particular time, with particular people, family, extended family, and so forth. And we ought to be a humble people who are going through our life really rooted in our own locale and in our own network of relationships, and we're really present there and focused on the relationships and responsibilities that God has given to us. And there's a finiteness and there's a localness to all of that. Now enter the smartphone. Okay, you can in a sense go anywhere in the world through your smartphone. You can know nearly anything you want to know through your smartphone. You can do tons of things through your smartphone. And you can do it like whenever you want. Mm-hmm. In other words, the smartphone represents this invitation to this invitation to press, to transcend your finitude. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you were just sharing before we started recording here about the problem. For example, let's talk about knowledge. Okay, you can, if you want, you can avail yourself of world news, of news in Africa, of news in Australia, of news in the Middle East, and there are news outlets all over the world who are streaming news all day long, and so that'd be one example where like the news of the world is potentially before you at any given time. Or to take the social media angle, other people's lives, other people's stories, other people's pictures, other people's highs and lows can be continually set before you at any given time. And what I want to say, and this is where I want to encourage us to really be on guard, is that at the end of the day, I can't effectively and practically love all of my global neighbors. Okay, but do I know what is going on with the members of my family? Do I know what is going on with my neighbors? Do I know what is going on with the brothers and sisters in Christian brothers and sisters in South Paris or in South Paris Baptist Church? So I think that the smartphone represents this transcendent affinitude, which is completely overwhelming and unmanageable. It can be very interesting, but how people way out there can't help us here very much, and we can't help them very much. It's not that we don't care. It's just that we've got to focus our compassion and our care and our friendship and our service towards the people that God has put around us. And so I think I think those are two examples. Let me give a third example, and then I'll pause and let you interact with it. The third example is, and all I can say is I think this is insidious. When you can do so many things on one device, while we look at it as convenient, again, I think it ends up being a huge, it's like a black hole that just funnels all of our attention and energy into it. Okay. So, if you have a crossword puzzle book and you open it up and you do your crossword puzzles, or you are reading a book and you don't know what that word means, and so you go pull a dictionary off the shelf and you look it up. Okay. You want to connect with someone, and you go and you make a phone call. Okay. You want to listen to music, and you turn on the radio. Now, and you can keep going, but now all of these things are now put on one device. I can do all of these things and dozens of more things and hundreds of more things, all in and through this one device. It's not that individually they're wrong to do. It's just that, can I handle all of that power, all of that potentiality, all of that productivity? Can I handle it without it really sucking the life out of my soul? And that's what I find, and again, I'm speaking for me now, is that for me, it was evident to me that I'm often distracted and often scattered and often just shallowly skimming the surface of many things in reference to my smartphone. Like a thought pops in my head. Oh, I'm reading a book. And that looks like he's footnoting this book. Oh, let me go see if that book's available on Amazon. So So I'm breaking my thought and concentration and engagement with this book. Now I'm seeing now I'm shopping. Well, my phone's right there if I want it to be. All right. And multiply that by a number of things throughout the day where a thought pops into your head. Oh, I wonder what the weather's going to be like next week. Well, let me check it out right now. Okay. I wonder. I wonder what the automatic deposit was today in my bank. Let me check it right now. And you just and so I'm trying to learn to be more present and more focused and less scattered and fragmented. Because of all that the smartphone can do, and it's right at your fingertips, you can literally just like in a matter of 25 minutes be all over the place.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I checked the weather. I shot for two items. I'm checking the news. I'm going to check another news channel, and then I'll get over here, and it's just like, wow. Maybe I just need to be present with myself in the place that God has put me, instead of having my energy distracted like that. So that's what I think. That's what I think of by the smartphone has many good uses, but the fact that it does so much becomes insidious. Because what the temptation is to transcend my finitude and to literally be all over the place and all over the world, and I'm not truly at peace, present in my own body, in my own place, with my own people. And that greatly burdens me to the point of I've been making significant changes so that I'm more present and less distracted.
That makes great sense. That I think Solomon would approve when he wrote Ecclesiastes chapter 3, where he says that everything there is a season. For everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven. And then he starts listing examples. If you're scattered, it's like the time for everything is now. No, that's not how it is. There's time for certain things are now.
That's right.
And there's another time. There used to be a time when you'd get the weather.
Right.
There'd be a time that you'd be on the phone calling people. There'd be a time that you'd be reading. And these things would have a particular time slot within the day, within the schedule of your life. Now, every moment of every day, whether it's early or late or in between, every moment where it's dinner, when there's other people to interact with, all of those moments become opportunities to do all the things that you listed. And none of those were bad, like checking the weather or the news or what have you. Like those aren't, there's nothing inherently bad about them, but the timeliness, by applying that thing in a context where it's not timely, it's not just is it the right thing, but is it the right timing?
Yeah.
That stood out to me while you were talking.
Yes, you're trying to compress everything, potentially everything, into now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's well said.
It is like an attempt to be like God. It's an attempt to have access to all knowledge, to have access to being present in all places.
Yeah.
And places that you're not present, and having access to knowledge that you really don't even have a reason to have or have any need for. And then so you have all knowledge, all presence, and then there's a power element.
Yeah.
Where you have the power to manage time and manage resources and organize and efficiency. So there's a power in efficiency. But there's also power that's accessible that we really shouldn't have access to. And kind of the way I'm looking at this, I'm using an example from Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, there is an item in Lord of the Rings called a let me get the pronunciation of this right. A plandier. It's a crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing fancy. It's a crystal ball, but in Lord of the Rings, it's called a palandir. And a palandir, if you were to describe it, it's a dark, semi-translucent, nearly indestructible object that allows you to view into the past. It allows you to communicate and see things over great distances and thereby have an effect on things through the palandir from a far distance away. It's very similar. It's interesting that Tolkien had no knowledge of cell phones, of smartphones, but this palandir is very similar, just different in shape, to a smartphone. And the character of this item in the story, and to just use the fictional story to draw out real world lessons, you had alluded to the Ring of Power in your sermon on this topic.
Yes.
The Ring of Power was a very bewitching element. It bewitched the user.
Right.
And this palandir had this bewitching quality as well. And characters like Gandalf, who were wise and known for their wisdom, would avoid it because it's you don't know who might be on the other end. When they're not all accounted for, they can be hacked and you can be bewitched through this device. And that happens in the story of Saruman. If you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, this would all make sense to you. But the point that I'm getting is that there is power in this device, that it comes off as very approachable and it comes off as very innocent, but there is a tremendous amount of power. And if we're not careful, it is easy to take such an item of great potential and to put it up on a pedestal like an idol.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And then it's no longer this. It's not restrained to a timeliness. It's not restrained to a context in which the person. God has created each of His image bearers to live up to a certain potential, and if this is robbing you of that potential, then it's robbing you of the purpose that God has for you. So, we need to cast off those things, and that was something you said in your sermon. Run the race that's set before you, cast off all these sins that so easily beset us.
Right.
So I have shifted roles. You just got me to break character. I'm no longer the probing interlocutor. I'm now just engaging with the subject. Do you want me to ask you another question?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's see if we have any other goodies here. You talked about our dynamic fellowship. In relationship to God. We have this dynamic fellowship in relationship to God. And if you don't have this dynamic fellowship, this dynamic relationship with God, then there's nothing to guard, there's nothing to keep, there's nothing to maintain.
That's right.
Because, what's
That's
the point?
right. That's right.
You need to have something that has real value for you to cast off things that would distract you.
Right.
So, but in this dynamic fellowship, can't God use our online life for His glory?
Can God use our online life for His glory? Of course. And it has to do. What I'm trying to make an appeal to is for people to be thoughtful stewards of what God has set before you. And so there is an online world, and in as much as real people are communicating with each other through various mechanisms in that online world, there is certainly the opportunity to broadcast truth, to display beauty, to make connections with people, or to carry on conversation with people. I just think it's you have to make sure that, because with all that kind of like, with all good things, right? Well, all good things can be used for the glory of God. But we shouldn't just quickly assume that since that possibility exists, that therefore that just justifies however I'm using or engaging with those good things. So you got to ask yourself the right questions in terms of, am I glorifying God in the local physical world where He's placed me? Because just think about how easy it would be to conduct or project some kind of a godly presence into the online world.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Right.
But are you actually loving your wife? Are you actually loving your children? Are you actually loving your neighbors? Are you actually loving your brothers and sisters in Christ? Because if it's not getting lived out in that local, physical, immediate relational world where God has placed us, then the online world is in many ways an illusion, and people are playing a game.
Yeah.
Now, if you're, and everyone has to ask this question for themselves. If you're truly anchored and rooted locally and loving people in the the actual physical world around you, then you may have something of value to offer to more people in more places that you then share through the online world. Okay? Or you may want to draw upon that online world to receive some edification or instruction, that sort of thing. So yes, absolutely, it's legitimate. The online world is legitimate, and God can be glorified through it. You can glorify God through it, but be thoughtful and measured about what you're doing. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and let me. So I think now's a good time for me to share another lesson that I'm kind of learning here in terms of moderating my smartphone usage. So I already said, embrace your finitude. And I also said more or less to be present in and focused on your primary relationships and responsibilities.
Right.
Now, the third thing I want to say is cultivate depth. Cultivate depth. And I was having a conversation with Aaron about this a few weeks ago, and one of the things that we've both been learning, as a matter of fact, but one of the things that I've been learning is that I actually need to be attentive to what's going on in my own heart, and so I would often play music, a lot of Christian music with lyrics being sung, or I'd listen to a lot of podcasts, very edifying podcasts. But and again, there's nothing wrong with that. I've been doing that a lot less over the last month, a lot less, for multiple reasons. But one reason is just that's kind of like occurred to me through this is that, wow, God didn't create me to just have other people singing in my head or other people speaking in my head. Like he wants me to meditate upon, process, internalize, apply, think through. And that requires time. So if I just have a perpetual soundtrack of music, audio books, and podcasts, it's very intellectually enriching in one sense, but in terms of the life of my soul, am I just a connoisseur of massive amounts of music and information? Or am I slowing down and taking stock of what is God doing in my life? What is God doing in my heart? What is God doing in the lives of the people around me? And how can I serve them? And just, we need to, so one thing I've been thinking about is I need to chew deeply on less ideas instead of just kind of having a kind of a minimal engagement with hundreds of ideas. And so I want to encourage people to cultivate depth, slow down. You need to be the kind of person who can be alone with your thoughts before God. And you don't need someone else's voice to constantly be stimulating you or steadying you. Okay? And if being alone with your own thoughts before God is unnerving or anxiety inducing, nothing strange is happening to you. You have to kind of figure this out. But we'll never become like the psalmists if we're just like constantly tuning into other people's content. Sure, listen to an audiobook now and then. Listen to a podcast now and then. Listen to some music now and then. But you gotta carve out blocks of uninterrupted time where it's you and the Lord. And that can even be while you're preparing food or washing dishes. It can be you alone doing your work and you're thinking. It's so important to think, to meditate, to chew upon, to think through, to offer up short prayers, and just how are you going to live this life out? So, I think that's a big deal.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a big deal. It's just the constant cacophony of noise that is in our heads, and I'm not on a pedestal here. Like this speaks to me because I'm in that boat where I'm consuming a tremendous amount of content,
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of media, and I think the media I consume is very uplifting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the real work is done in silence. Real work is done in the relationship with God. It's in that quiet time when all that noise is turned off. And like for me, what I notice is like boredom creeps in, and the boredom creeps in, and it brings in that desire for noise.
Yeah.
Because the boredom is unbearable. Embrace that boredom, because it's in that, be still and know that I am God. Be still, don't be afraid, allow the boredom to ride itself out. Just be still, pray, listen. Like when Tim was on here and we were talking about our private prayer times, and he's like, sometimes I just like to sit there and soak. Just like soak it up.
Yeah.
Like, just be still and know that I am God, and absorb this and just be present in that. Be still and be calm in that. Find rest in that. That's, it seems like why do I need that? That from an earthly perspective, it doesn't necessarily seem like that's an important thing, but it's a really important thing. And serious growth and development in your soul and in your relationship with God can happen in that space. So,
the other thing that I want to say about all this has to do with the way that we're actually conducting our relationships and the example that we're setting. And this is one of the things where this was definitely part of my journey here over the last 2 or 3 months, and that is that. And I mentioned this, I alluded to this. It may not have actually been in the sermon itself. It may have been after the sermon when I was saying a little bit more about it. But anyway, so I was experiencing frustration because, so I like a typical experience going back a couple months now would be, I'd be up in the morning in the kitchen doing some breakfast food preparation, and often, listening to music or listening to a podcast, and one or more of my kids would eventually come into the kitchen, and the center of gravity in the room was the smartphone. Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much that it was necessarily the center of gravity for me when I was just listening to the podcast or listening to the music, but it was like, then as people would come into the room, like the attention was drawn there. Mm-hmm. And then my kids would want to use my smartphone to listen to music or to see if there was a certain product on Amazon or that sort of thing. And this was irritating me. But it wasn't until I went camping in late August and really processed these things in a deeper manner that I realized, really the problem is me. Like I'm the one who is making the smartphone visible and available. And I'm communicating that it's pretty awesome mm-hmm. by having it like front and center. Mm-hmm. Like it's not my kids' fault. Like they're just being kids. They in a sense, they just want to, I mean, I'm not that they're consciously thinking this, but they're imitating me. Hey, mm-hmm. can we use your smartphone to listen to music? Can we use your smartphone to mm-hmm. shop for a product? Mm-hmm. Like, can we use your smartphone to check the weather? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. And keep in mind, like, they're kids. It's difficult enough for thoughtful adults to limit their smartphone use to a moderate use. Kids are if you gave a smartphone to a 10-year-old and said, "Here you go. Use it as much as you want, mm-hmm. or as little as you want. Mm-hmm. I hope you make good decisions." You know how that story is going to go.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. So they don't have the requisite maturity and perspective to really keep those appetites at bay. But the point is, I realized, okay, I got to make changes. And so what I have been doing and what I am committed to keep doing is I do not want my smartphone to be visible and central to my life in my household. So I would rather listen to a lot less music. I would rather listen to a lot less podcasts, if for no other reason than to make it clear that I think our relationships with each other, unmediated by a phone, mm-hmm. Are of much greater value than our desire to hop online and check out this thing or another. Mm-hmm. I mean, why is it that you can go into a restaurant and you see two people sitting across from each other at a restaurant and they're both on their smartphone? Why is it that you have people gathering around to play a game and one or more of them have a smartphone and might periodically use it while you're playing a game? And you can just think about any setting. Like, why aren't human beings are made in the image of God. We are created for community. We are made for relationships with each other. The treasure is in front of you.
Right.
The image bearer of God who's in front of you is the treasure.
Right.
Not Not the smartphone.
Yeah, right.
Now I know that you can use the smartphone to connect with other people in a meaningful way, and that's all good and well. But my point is that why should I operate on the assumption that when I'm having, if you and I were to have lunch together, why should I operate on the assumption that anyone else should be able to reach me and expect to hear back from me while you and I are having lunch? Why? I mean, obviously, if there's an emergency and one of our wives is trying to contact us, we would like to take that call, right? Mm-hmm. But short of an emergency, we ought to be the kind of people who, hey, I am present with you for this hour or this hour and a half.
Yeah,
or if we're playing a game, I am present with you all to win this game because I want to win. I really do.
Yeah.
Want to win. Okay, but I'm a good sport. I want to be here to play this game.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, if we're in a home group setting, like I'm here to connect with you all right now. Mm-hmm. Not to like, oh, I got to take this call. I got to answer the message. Or why? Just get rid of it. Just put it down.
Right.
Put it away. And so I want to communicate to the people around me that I'm not tethered to the smartphone. Mm-hmm. I want to communicate to the people around me that I am willingly available and free for relationship and conversation with them.
Yes. Yep.
So that's another piece of it for me.
Yeah, and the smartphone definitely gets in the way of that.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I think it's very practical. I think there's a lot of value in all of that. And I think it builds better relationships, like you said. And through better relationships, we get to minister and share the gospel to people. Mm-hmm. You can't do that on you can't, well, yes, you can. You could share the gospel online, but you can't have the same, you're not connecting with people if the person across from you, you're not connecting with your true neighbor, that person that's right in front of you. If you're glued to this, connecting to someone through this. If we want to be effective at ministering to the people in our community, we actually have to look the people in our community in the face and look them in the eye and have a conversation where we listen to them and our attention isn't cut up and divided and fractured by our devices. There's a whole screed I don't want to go down. Different military strategies. You have the focused approach, and you have the diversive strategy, the dispersing strategy. When you disperse all your resources across the board, you are limited in your ability to affect a singular point.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a singular individual and your attention is all fractured across a spectrum from international affairs, current affairs, weather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just fill in the blank with whatever happens to be in your particular feed. You can't be there for that person. And we are here. We're supposed to be here for those people. Like God is orchestrating appointments between his people. He has good deeds prepared beforehand. And he's got treasures of the kingdom that he has concealed along our way for us to discover. Wonderful blessings for us to uncover. We're not going to see these opportunities that are right in front of us if we can't see past the end of our nose because we've got a device there. So I'm just kind of freestyling here, I guess, because I'm just thinking about this out loud. But that's good.
And let me, as we kind of head towards wrapping this up, let me just share one thought with you all, that you can ask this question with respect to your smartphone usage, but you can actually ask this question with respect to anything that's going on in your life. But I learned this a number of years ago from another sermon by John Piper, the same one who preached those sermons on Isaiah 55. But this sermon, the one I'm referring to now, he was preaching on Romans I'm sorry, the Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. And let me read from the middle of verse 1 to the beginning of verse 2 in Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12, it says, "Let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus." And John Piper said that we need to learn from the world of running, because it says, "Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." We need to learn from the world of running how to conduct our spiritual running, our spiritual race. The idea is that a runner, a competitive runner, asks one fundamental question in terms of their discipline, their training, their diet, their clothing, their sneakers. The question they ask is, does this help me run? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what Piper did is in applying this, and I think he may have actually been passing along a lesson that he had learned from somebody else, but so here's how he was applying this to our spiritual walk, our spiritual running. He said, don't ask the minimalist righteousness question. The minimalist righteousness question is there anything wrong with it? Is it wrong to use a smartphone to check my weather and check my email and pay my bills and scroll on social media and listen to music and blah, 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 blah? Is there anything wrong with it? And you might say, well, I can't exactly say that there's something wrong with it. But he said, don't ask the minimalist righteousness question. Ask the maximalist righteousness question, which is, does this thing, whatever this thing is, this habit, this decision, this way of living, does this thing help me run the race that the Lord has set before me? Is the way that I'm using my smartphone helping me run after Jesus? And you can ask that question of your movies, of your music, of your friendships, of your schedule. Don't just ask, well, is there anything wrong with what I'm doing? Ask, is this helping me? Is this encouraging me in my walk? Is this making me leaner in my spiritual intensity so that I'm going hard after the Lord? And if all of us are honestly asking that question and following the answers wherever they lead, watch the spiritual temperature rise in the congregation.
No, that's good. Yeah, what is maximally effective?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you want to wrap it up? You got anything else?
No, I think that's it. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. Well, I think we're at a point in our society. I'm sure that almost all of our listeners will have firsthand experience, either directly or your observations of others, about how all-consuming the smartphone can become. And I think the issue is not so much taking aim at the smartphone as we want God to be all-consuming in our lives. We want to love Him, and we want to love our neighbors, the people around us. And so we just want to aim for that mark every day. So we want to thank Caleb Lynch for engineering the podcast. We want to thank Aaron Darrow for the use of his music during the introduction. We want to thank you for watching or listening to the podcast, as the case may be. We welcome your questions and we welcome your ideas for future podcast episodes.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Father, for this time together. We thank you for your word. We thank you that your word is is so much sweeter than the distractions that this world has around us. We ask that you would train us up to be focused on the prize, that we might run this race with endurance. Give us the strength, give us the focus, and equip us to do your will. In Jesus' name, amen.